On today's show, the debut of the Friday Five, I've got 5 topics about the Cavs from the past week. Going to spend 5 minutes talking about all of them. We're going to do that on this bonus edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube right now, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show, of course, brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. Also need to let you know that Locked On Cavs now has a newsletter, introducing the Locked On Cavs Daily Newsletter, your one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That is LockedOnDaily.com. So this is the first ever edition of the Friday Five. The way this is going to work, it's going to be an episode every single Friday moving forward, with the exception of during the All-Star break. Probably going to take that week off from this, but what I want to do, and most weeks it's going to be a second episode on Friday, so similar to how the Whip Around episode on Mondays, where I preview the week ahead, who the Cavs are going to be playing. This is sort of a week in review type of episode. I'm going to pick out 5 things about the Cavs every week. Some are going to be good, some are going to be bad, some might be a little bit trivial. I'm going to spend 5 minutes talking about each topic. So if you're here and you maybe missed an episode throughout the week, this is going to be a great way to catch up from it. Also, this is obviously not an episode that is going to focus entirely on what happened last night between the Cavs and the Oklahoma City Thunder. I did a full Locked On Cavs episode of that is in your feeds from earlier on Friday. That came out Friday morning. So if you're looking for that, scroll on down. You'll find that, where I go very in-depth on what happened against OKC on Thursday night. I will touch on that game coming up in just a little bit. It is one of the 5 topics, but if you're looking for a more in-depth breakdown than just the 5 minutes I'm going to give you on that, that can be found in your podcast feed. So I've got 5 topics. Going to spend 5 minutes talking about all 5 topics. Got Donovan Mitchell's leadership. We've got responding to the loss against the Pacers, all-star voting, the defense lately, and the OKC game. So we're going to do that. And we are going to start with our first 5 minutes on Donovan Mitchell's leadership, because this has been one of the things to me that has stood out, not just this past week with the Cavs dealing with a little bit of adversity, but the season as a whole. So the Cavs have been so successful this year because they are a team that has been greater than the sum of its parts. They're a team that Donovan Mitchell is still the best player on this roster. There's no doubt about that to this point. I don't know that he has necessarily had the best season of anybody on this team, but he's been somebody that I think the thing that has been the most impressive to me about what Donovan Mitchell has done so far this year, it's been who he has been as a leader. Because it's really easy for him to go out and average 25 plus points a night, do it on pretty efficient shooting. He's that good at basketball. He's capable of doing that on a regular basis. We've seen him do that in a Cavs uniform for the past couple of years, where he has carried this team. The Cavs, for the first 2 years of the Donovan Mitchell experience, went as far as Donovan Mitchell could take them. And I think this year has been a bit of a different story, because you've seen Evan Mobley step up. You've seen Darius Garland step up. You've seen Jarrett Allen have one of the best years of his career. And those guys deserve a lot of credit for what they've done on the floor, right? Like, it'd be silly to say, oh, Darius Garland doesn't deserve a lot of credit for bouncing back after what he went through last season, or Evan Mobley doesn't deserve a ton of credit for taking the leap offensively that we've seen from him this year. That's not what this is about. This is about Donovan Mitchell putting personal accolades aside and saying, I don't need to be, quote unquote, the ball dominant guy. I don't need to be the guy that every single thing runs through. I don't need to be the guy that's the best player on the floor every single night, because if he's not that guy, it gives the Cavs a better chance long-term of winning. Not to say that they don't need him to be that guy at times. They do. Not to say that he can't be that guy. He can. But I think that the Cavs are better off when Donovan Mitchell is taking the leadership role that he's taken. I don't think that Mobley, Garland, Jarrett Allen, I don't think those three guys are all getting all-star consideration if not for Donovan Mitchell. And I thought Spencer Davies made a really good point of this earlier this week when he was on Locked On Cavs with me. It's not that Donovan Mitchell has taken a step back. He's taken a step to the side. And I think without that happening, and that I think is definitely a leadership type thing, without that happening, I don't know that Mobley and Garland and even Allen, to I think a little bit of a lesser extent, can elevate their games the way that they can elevate them. The other thing that has really stuck out to me about Donovan Mitchell's leadership so far this season is obviously the Cavs have been great. Like their win-loss record, despite what happened on Thursday night in Oklahoma City, their win-loss record is outstanding. They are 34-6 through 40 games. It's the best 40-game start in franchise history. They've been an incredible team so far this year. But Donovan has not lost sight of the bigger goals at hand. And I think that's a really good leadership thing from him, because I think it could be really easy to be swept up and like, man, we're winning a ton of regular season games. We're a really good regular season team. But when you talk to them, so much of it's not about the wins and losses. Of course, they want to go out and win every single night. Every competitor in the NBA wants to do that. I mean, guys that are playing for the Washington Wizards, they want to go out and win every single night. They're just not very good. But I do think that it's important that in wins and losses, Donovan talks about building the right habits, because this is something that is going to matter. The Cavs can win 65 plus games, but if they don't do it the right way, if they don't build the right habits, if they don't prepare themselves for the postseason the right way, then it becomes something where, oh, well, maybe this regular season wasn't as good for us as it appeared just on the surface level with the record. And I think that has been a big leadership thing. I think winning matters a lot to Donovan Mitchell. I think we've seen that throughout this season. He looks to me like somebody who, of course, wants personal accolades. He wants to be an all-star. He wants to be all NBA. I think Darius Garland feels the same way. Evan Mobley, I think, feels the same way. I think Jarrett Allen feels the same way. All those guys do want personal recognition, but I think that we have seen him put the team over himself this year in a way that I think is very rare for a superstar player to do. That has been something that I have been very, very impressed with so far this season. And I think it's something that we should all give Donovan Mitchell credit for doing, because without him doing that, I'm not so sure that the Cleveland Cavaliers are where they are. Okay, that's topic number one. Topic number two, responding to the loss against the Indiana Pacers. So Sunday night, the Cavs played, to that point, their worst game of the season. That second half against the Pacers on Sunday was the worst half of basketball that I have seen them play this year, which was a little surprising considering what the first half looked like, where they looked very locked in defensively. Now, on offense, it wasn't necessarily great, particularly in that first quarter, but the second quarter, they looked more like the Cavs. And sitting there in that game, in that arena, I was thinking to myself, oh, I've seen this before. The Cavs are going to go on another run here in the third quarter. They're going to be up by 25, and this game will be over. Instead, the Indiana Pacers took control of that game in the second half, a way that to that point we had not seen a team do against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And that, to me, was something that, okay, I don't know if this necessarily qualifies as adversity quite yet, but it's something that how the Cavs respond to this, I thought was going to be an important thing. So it was good for them that they played the Indiana Pacers 2 nights later on the road in Indiana, because it was an opportunity for them to very quickly avenge the loss that they took on Sunday and play better basketball. And I did think in that particular game, they responded the right way. I thought they bounced back well. I also did think that in that game, Donovan Mitchell taking control the way that he took control of that game was really important, scoring 19 points in that first quarter. I believe he had 27 points at halftime, finished with 35 points. that was the type of Donovan Mitchell performance that we haven't seen too much of this year, because for the most part, Donovan hasn't needed to be that guy. And he wasn't necessarily as good in the second half because Evan Mobley had a great third quarter in that game. Darius Garland had a great fourth quarter in that game. So he didn't need to have the same control in the second half that he did the first half. But I do think, and even getting back to the leadership side of things a little bit here, I think that is something that showed leadership, that he could sense that the team needed him to step up in a certain way and make sure that game was going to be a win. And he was able to do that. And I think that is something that's a really good sign about that team. That Sunday night's game was the worst loss of the season to that point. I think Thursday night probably surpassed that against Oklahoma City. But I think that the way the Cavs responded on Tuesday pushed off any adversity, right? Like losing one game out of 82 games, I refuse to view that as an adverse situation. I'm not sure, even if you go back to November when the Cavs lost back-to-back games against the Hawks in the same situation as this Pacers setup, where they played them 2 games in a row with a day off in between. Now, that day off was Thanksgiving, and I probably think that complicated things just a little bit early in the season as far as, you know, how the scouting or preparation was done because of that holiday. But had the Cavs lost that game on Tuesday night to Indiana and then going into Oklahoma City on Thursday night, that is a situation similar to the one earlier in the year where you saw them lose 2 games to Atlanta and then have to play Boston. That can be something that is an adverse situation. And I thought Donovan Mitchell not allowing them to enter that adverse situation because of the way that he played in that game, I thought was a really good thing. I thought that was one of the bigger things to come out of Cavs basketball this week. I also loved seeing Evan Mobley have the type of performance he had in that third quarter where he hit 3 threes. He was the best player on the floor for that 12-minute stretch. And then Darius Garland has been really, I think, the best closer on this team. He's been one of the best clutch players in basketball all season long. You saw him have, I believe it was 11 points in the fourth quarter. He looked really, really good then. And the Cavs not allowing themselves to lose back-to-back games in that situation, I thought was really important. I thought it was the proper type of bounce back game. Kenny Atkinson afterwards mentioned that it was like a playoff-like response, and the Cavs are going to be tested like that at some other points this season. They're certainly going to be tested like that against some inferior opponents in the postseason because they will be playing teams that are better than when the postseason arrives. It's not as if they're only going to square off against Boston and Oklahoma City in the postseason. So I do think that was something that served as really good practice. And I thought seeing how the Cavs responded from that loss on Sunday night with a win, they didn't play great. They played good. They didn't play great in that game. But seeing that sort of response, I thought was a really important thing from the Cavaliers. That's what they needed to do. They handled business, and then they were able to move on. And then Thursday, of course, a little bit of a different story. We will get to that coming up in a minute. We will also get to the defense. Hasn't been that great, and we got to talk all-star voting results. So we will do that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%. Plus, you get 4% APY on your cash in non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. That is Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 a month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to Robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national average savings account interest rate. Claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you are subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. Let's talk about the defense for the Cleveland Cavaliers, because this has been an area where things have slipped as of late. The Cavs right now rank 11th in the NBA in defensive rating for the complete season. Is that the worst thing in the world? No. Should the Cavs be better than 11th defensively? Yes, they absolutely should, because this is a team that with Jarrett Allen, with Evan Mobley, with Isaac Okoro, Dean Wade, Karis LeVert, Max Strus, like I just named off, 6 at least above average to really good, in Evan Mobley's case, great defenders. To me, that is a roster that should be better than 11th defensively. And this has been more of an issue lately. So the last 10 games for the Cavs, they rank 22nd in the NBA defensively. That is not a place they should be. They should be 11th is one thing, but 22nd over a 10-game stretch, I think, is pretty bad. And this is a unit that was 20th throughout the month of November. Now, in November, I do think that there was some three-point shooting variance against them that caused them to tumble down. They were getting a little unlucky. Lately, it hasn't been that. They haven't been, I think they're 12th in the NBA, so they are in the top half of the NBA in this stretch in three-point percentage against. So they're not getting destroyed from beyond the arc. They're not giving up a ton of three-point looks. They're also 12th in terms of opponents' frequency from deep. So that has not necessarily been the issue. In the month of January, the Cavs are 26th in defense. It's 7 games. It's not the largest sample size in the world, but they have a defensive rating of 118.3. They are allowing 118.3 points per 100 possessions in the month of January. There are 4 teams in the NBA that are worse than them. Only one of those teams, the Los Angeles Lakers, has any dream of being in the postseason. The other 3 teams, they are dreaming of Cooper Flag. They want to be the team with the number 1 overall pick. I'm talking about Washington, Toronto, and Brooklyn. Those 3 teams are really bad. The Lakers are very average. The Cavs have been awesome, but they haven't been awesome enough defensively. And I think one of the things that is worth diving into here is the Cavs have actually gotten sloppy offensively, and that has led to a bit of their downfall on defense. For the season, the Cavs have allowed the 5th fewest points off turnovers in the NBA. Good place to be. In the 7 games in January, they've allowed the 22nd fewest. So they've been bad. They're allowing 18.9 points off turnovers per game. And we saw what happened against OKC on Thursday night. OKC forced a ton of turnovers. The Cavs very much struggled. The other thing, fast break points. The Cavs rank 18th in the NBA at 15.9 fast break points allowed per game. So they haven't been good at that all year long. In January, they ranked 26th. So I mentioned there have only been 4 teams worse than them defensively. There have only been 4 teams that allowed more fast break points in the month of January. Cavs allowing 18.9 fast break points against them in January. They have not been very good getting back on defense. Transition defense has been a big weak spot. Now, to be fair here, of the 7 games they've played in January, 4 of them have come against 2 of the best transition teams in basketball. OKC, very good at forcing turnovers and getting out on the break, and the Indiana Pacers, very good at forcing turnovers and getting out on the fast break. So that is certainly part of it, but the Cavs need to be better at taking care of the basketball, because that offensive slippage, right? I think we look at this as defensive slippage, and it is. They've not been good really at too much defensively. We've seen them play more zone because they've struggled in man, but I do think that a decent chunk of what's going wrong for them defensively right now is actually because of what is going wrong for them offensively right now. That is the thing, that if the turnovers get cleaned up a little bit, and they had 21 on Thursday night against OKC. It was a really bad performance in that category for the Cavs. But if that gets cleaned up, I think then That's when we start to see them clean up the defense a little bit. They were 20th in November in defense. They were 3rd in December. We know they're capable of being good defensively. They just need to go out and they need to do it again. All-star voting, second returns or third returns, whatever it is, those are out. And voting ends Monday. We're going to talk about that. Plus, we will talk about the Cavs getting destroyed by the Thunder on Thursday night. We'll do both of those things on this Friday 5 edition of Locked On Cavs next. Today's show is brought to you by Skims. Yes, Skims makes underwear for men. We're going to talk about the underwear that I'm wearing right now because Skims has sent me some. I have a few pairs, and it is the best underwear that I've ever worn. I'm staring directly into the camera right now talking about Skims because I don't even need to read the words that they gave me to talk about Skims. I'm telling you exactly how I feel because I've never worn underwear that's more comfortable. I'm very particular about what I've got going on in the underwear category. I've tried a lot of different brands throughout the years, tried some different styles. I have found something that I love in Skims. I've never worn better underwear, and if you give this a shot, there's a good chance you're going to say the same thing. I personally, I'm somebody, I like a little bit longer. I don't want the short underwear. I want it longer. I want it getting down closer to my thigh. Just that's where I'm comfortable. I don't want to be bunched up. Like that's where I get really uncomfortable with underwear. It does not happen with Skims. I could not be happier with the product I have. And if you give it a shot, confident you're going to feel the same way. So shop Skims Men at skims.com/lockedonnba. And of course, in Skims stores, that's skims.com/lockedonnba, LOCKEDON NBA. And of course, in stores, and let them know we sent you too. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Again, shop Skims Men's, SKIMS Men's at skims.com/lockedonnba, LOCKEDON NBA. Tell them we sent you. I couldn't be happier with the underwear I've got on. And I bet if you give them a shot, you won't be happier either. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs. They are here even more exciting. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win that first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app, of course, very easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Maybe that OKC game on Thursday night could have been a little bit more exciting for you if you went onto the FanDuel Sportsbook app during it. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. You don't have to wait around for your winnings to come in, whether you're betting on your favorite team, just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs. FanDuel, they've got you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com today. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Okay, so we have talked about Donovan Mitchell. We have talked about the Cavs' response. We've talked about the defense slipping. Let's talk about the All-Stars. So the Cleveland Cavaliers are on a quest to have 4 All-Stars at the NBA All-Star Game in San Francisco next month. I think they have a chance to do it. We got another voting update on Thursday afternoon, and there were some changes that were positive for the Cavs. Donovan Mitchell has been second now in all 3 returns for All-Star voting. He has trailed LaMelo Ball in all 3 returns amongst Eastern Conference guards. There was, however, an increase in votes for Donovan Mitchell in terms of the gap between second and third. So that certainly is good news. At this point, I very much would expect Donovan Mitchell to start the All-Star game. I think that with the Cavs record, with how well he has played, with the fan vote being something that is in his favor, I think it'd be very, very surprising if Mitchell is not a starter when the All-Star game gets here. He deserves to be a starter. He's been the best player on what has been for the vast majority of the season, the best team in basketball. Darius Garland, another All-Star hopeful for the Cavs. He is 8th amongst Eastern Conference guards. Garland's case, I think, is the thing that fascinates me most about how this All-Star selection is going to go. I think that with where he's at in fan voting, the ship probably has sailed on him being an All-Star starter, even though he has been I think one of the best guards in the league. I think he will get some player votes. I think he will get some media votes as far as being an all-star starter, but I don't know that it actually is going to happen. If, and it's a big if, LaMelo Ball makes it into the game, I think Garland's path to getting there does become a little murky. I think Darius has done more than enough to deserve being in the all-star game. I think he's played like an all-star. I think you can make the case that he has had a better season than Donovan Mitchell so far. But if LaMelo Ball makes the game as a starter because the fan vote is 50% of that criteria, and I don't know how the media, I have a feeling how the media is going to treat LaMelo Ball and not give him very many votes. I don't know how the players, because their vote counts for 25% in this, I don't know how the players are going to treat LaMelo Ball. Are they going to say, no, you don't affect winning the way I believe the media will? I'm not so sure. So we could see LaMelo Ball as a starter. We might not. If he's not a starter, I'd be very surprised if the coaches vote him in, just because I don't think that's the way they think about things. And if that's the case, I think Darius Garland becomes a lock to make the all-star game. Evan Mobley moved up to 6th amongst Eastern Conference front court. There is a pretty sizable gap between 5th place, which is Jaylen Brown, and 6th place, which is Evan Mobley. With what he's done this year, I would be stunned if Evan Mobley is not an all-star. When you add in the team success the Cavs have had with what Evan has done offensively, with how incredible he is defensively, it's really, really difficult for me to see a world where he's not on the all-star team. I would be surprised if he's a starter. I think that the 3 starters in the front court are going to be the top 3 vote getters in the front court right now. Of course, you've got Giannis, you've got Jason Tatum, you've got Karl Anthony Towns. All 3 of those guys have had tremendous seasons. And I think that will be the starting front court in the Eastern Conference. And I have no issue with that being the starting front court in the Eastern Conference. But I do think that the front court gets a little thin after that. Jaylen Brown listed as a front court player. I think he'll make the game. He is ahead of Evan Mobley in fan voting. Paolo Banchero, the other guy that's ahead of Evan Mobley in fan voting, he won't make the game because he's played like 8 games all season, so he will not be an all-star. I just think when you get down to it, Evan Mobley is going to be a front court player. And then that leads me to Jarrett Allen. So Jarrett Allen entered the top 10 at 10th. It's the first time that he's been in the top 10 in all-star voting. He deserves it. He's been one of the 10 best front court players in the Eastern Conference. I do wonder if because of his path, because the front court is a little bit, I don't want to say weak in terms of who is there, like who is available, but I think that the backcourt in the Eastern Conference just has a little bit of a higher caliber of player in it right now. And maybe that means Jarrett Allen's path to being an all-star, 1, is a little more clear than we thought it was. 2, maybe it's even a little bit easier for him to make the game than it could be Darius Garland. I think Garland deserves it more, but Jarrett Allen, the first guy ever on pace to shoot 70% from the floor and 70% from the free throw line. Okay, now it's time to talk about what happened on Thursday night. The Cavs lose to the Oklahoma City Thunder by 20 points in a game that was not a 20-point game. They were destroyed. They were crushed. It was the worst loss the Cavs have had this year, and it's not close. It was a nationally televised game. There were a lot of eyes on this game. Did not go well. Everything that went well for them last Wednesday when they faced the Thunder, basically the opposite happened. This is a game, I don't think it's one that you just want to flush. I think there are things to be learned from it, but I think that the most important thing coming out of this game on Thursday night is how do the Cavs respond to what happened on Thursday night? They've not played their best basketball. I talked about their defense, how it has slipped during the month of January. Their net rating in January is, I think, below 1. It's 0.7. Now, they're still winning games because they are elite offensively, but they've got 2 blowout losses. And we haven't seen this team look like this all year long. Now, they have an opportunity, I think, over the next week here to really go out and make a statement that we had a bad week, that we went through a lull. And those things happen in the NBA. They do. They happen for different reasons to different teams. The Boston Celtics are going through one right now. Oklahoma City will probably go through one at some point too. I don't think going through a lull in the middle of January is the biggest deal in the world. Is it ideal? No, of course not. But I don't think it's time to press the panic button and sound the alarms. I don't think that that's where the Cavs should be. Saturday night, they play the Timberwolves. The Wolves have scuffled along this season. They went to the Western Conference Finals last year. They've not been that same team. They don't have the same pieces. Those pieces that they do have now don't fit that well. I think the Cavs can make a statement against a team that has been good defensively, not good offensively. I think this could sort of be, and this is going to sound crazy against a team that has Anthony Edwards, but this can sort of be a get-right game for the Cavs on the defensive end of the floor. And then they've got the Suns, who, of course, have all the talent in the world, but they do not look anything like a good team. That's a Monday afternoon. 2 games with Houston, with the game in Philadelphia in between. That is where I think, okay, the Cavs, they have an opportunity because Houston's been a good team. I don't think that they are a true playoff contender yet. I think they'll get there, but they've been a good team. And this will serve, I think, as an opportunity for the Cavs to really bounce back. I mentioned the bounce back against the Pacers, how that was a good thing to see, how that was what the Cavs needed to see after a blowout loss. I think they need to see that, but more sustained. We saw that response for one game, and I don't think it's worth getting totally worked up over a blowout loss to a really, really good team in OKC. But I do think it's appropriate now to see what this response looks like. Can the Cavs sustain some success? Can they get back to looking how they looked in the middle of December? Because you get to the end of December, when they went out west, that's really when the defense for them started slipping. That's when they stopped playing at a championship level defense and started falling down to, you know what, we can just outscore teams. And offensively, they're elite. They can outscore teams. But to be a championship level team, you need to do it on both ends of the floor. And the Cavs haven't done that lately. So Thursday night, I think, for the Cavs, should serve as a bit of a wake-up call because they got punched in the mouth. They got their teeth knocked out. And it's happened twice in a week. The fact that it happened in January instead of April is a really good thing. They have 42 games left this regular season before the games really, really start to matter when the postseason arrives. But how the Cavs respond over these next 5 or 6 games, really between now and the All-Star break, which is less than a month away, that to me will tell us a lot about who this team is and where this team is going. I think this is a really great team. I think that we've learned a lot more good things than bad things about them. I don't think they're a perfect team, but I think they're a really good team. How they respond will tell us just how great they can be. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. If you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor. Let me know what you thought of the first edition of the Friday Five. It's something I'd like to start doing on a regular basis, but I want to know what you guys think of these 5 bite-sized topics that I can talk about for 5 minutes each. I want to make this a Friday staple, but let me know, drop it in the comments or get at me on social media. Let me know what you think of it because I like it and I hope that you guys liked it too. So thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first, or in this case, maybe second listen every single day. The Cavs play the Wolves Saturday night. I'll talk to you after that.